We only have 3 rules. And the first rule is, don't be a jerk. Hey everybody, good morning. It is Tuesday, September 1st, and as I told you yesterday, I have this belief that September 1st means it's back to school time. And I'm not in front of a school, but I am in front of the world famous Philadelphia Museum of Art. And this is actually right where the world famous Rocky Steps are. I'm not on the Rocky Steps, that's a little farther down that way. It's a little chaotic right now. I love to come here in the morning. Well, I love actually coming here any time of day, but especially in the morning because there are people running and they are running up the stairs and they are working on their fitness. Sometimes, when we go running in the morning, there's like groups hopping up the steps and they're doing all kinds of, kettlebell stuff. It's crazy, but it's where people come to better themselves physically. And when it's not COVID time, it's also where people come to, walk through the museum and really, learn so much. It's an incredible museum. But I thought since we're talking about, back to school, it's about, what are we learning? What are we constantly working on ourselves to make ourselves better? So my theme for the day is how to deal with jerks. And you might be going, well, Michael, why are we having to deal with jerks? Well, there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, it was funny this weekend, my husband and I went to a new beer garden that's in our town here. And as we walked in, we got seated at a table and the gal who seated us said, okay, welcome, glad you guys are here. We only have 3 rules. And the first rule is don't be a jerk. She used a different word, but I'm gonna keep this G-rated. And she goes, I'm not worried about you guys being jerks, but just so you know. And the second rule is wear your masks when you're up from the table. And the third rule is, I don't know, I can't even remember what the third rule was. I don't even care, but we were giggling so much about the don't be a jerk. So when we were sitting there talking, my husband and I were laughing. We said, that should be a rule before you go into any business or you work with anybody. It's just don't be a jerk. Why? Can't we all just get along? So I was thinking about this yesterday because I had an interaction with somebody that they were kind of being a jerk. And, from what I do, 99.999% of everybody I interact with Shock Your Potential is fabulous. Like I get to interact with all these incredibly talented people and they've written books and they're, doing TED Talks and, they're running huge companies, they're changing people's lives every day. And then every once in a while, I get one of them who's, kind of a jerk. So it got me thinking about how do I deal with jerks? Like what's the real best way to do this? And so I decided to reflect because as you know, I always talk about look backwards, look at yourself in the mirror, look backwards, see what you've learned and how far you've come. And I was reflecting on the fact that when I was young, especially early in my career, man, if somebody was a jerk or they had an email that was snotty, I would fire back right away. I was so reactive. I was like firecracker. And sure enough, I learned that maybe that's not the best way to do things. I listen to people when they say, take a deep breath before you hit send, make sure that's what you want to say. And, so I learned that the hard way a couple times. So then I think in my middle of my career, I was more afraid of people not liking me. I wanted everybody to like me, but I still want everybody to like me. I'm not gonna lie, just operate a little bit differently. I want everybody to like me. But I would want that so badly that even when somebody acted like a jerk, I would try and win them over. My mindset was, well, I don't know why they did that, but I'm gonna win them over. They're gonna love me. And most of the time they did, but you know what? I found out sometimes you don't want them to love you. Sometimes those people were just jerks. And you didn't want them in your personal or professional life. I know you all know what I'm talking about. So somewhere over the last few years, I've hit a different milestone. And so I think where I am is right now is I stop now again and I reflect and I take a deep breath and I think, why did this person respond this way? Now, I don't know. They could be having a bad day or maybe this is just how they operate. I don't know. I can never know. The only thing I can control is me. So I then ask myself, is this person or this business interaction important to me and my business? And if it is important, then I better figure out a way to make this work. Maybe I do have to schmooze a little, or maybe I politely called them out on it. But I have to make that decision first about whether or not they're important, whether they're worth my time and energy. So then if they're not, then if they're not important, then I have two options. I can ignore them completely, or I can call them out on it in a polite way and say, hey, I'm a little confused by your response. Maybe this is not going to work out well for us. So I want you to know, if this is not the right connection, no harm, no foul. Best of luck to you. And it's kind of that polite way to say, hey, you're being a jerk, but in a nice way. But if the answer is yes and they're important, then that reflection has to go deeper, because you have to figure out, then how am I going to change this dynamic, and what am I going to do? And sometimes that may even also be calling them out on it, to say, hey, I'm sorry, maybe something I said or how I responded caused you to misunderstand what I was saying, or what, so because your response makes it sound like you're angry or disappointed or whatever. So help me understand how I can help us get back on track. And in a nice way, you're saying, hey, what was that about? And then if they come back and say, well, I didn't like the way you said this, well then, maybe there's part that I did wrong. And what can I learn from that? Or if they come back and say, gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to respond that way, I was having a really bad day. Hey, no problem. We all do. So it's about learning how we react and what it says about us. I very rarely completely ignore somebody altogether, but there are times when somebody really ticks me off, and I know that I have to ignore them until I'm ready to be in the right headspace to make those other decisions. And I think in our life, especially with how volatile things are right now in the world, we all can use a little reminder to take a deep breath and breathe, just relax, and really ask ourselves, what can we do and how can we control what we can control? That's all we can do. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope this gives you a little inspiration. Doing these every day reminds me that there's something always that I need to remember to continue to shock my own potential.